for most of that process, it becomes very manual. And of course, what clients really want to do is streamline that process and spend more time analyzing and having the ability to reforecast easily. The other challenge is as we reforecast or we modify and revise our budgets, it's very difficult to ensure that everyone is working on the same version and we're working all on the current set of numbers. And it is a very tedious process also to take the various budgets, again, by company department and start consolidating that data manually. So one of the things that's also a challenge in using Excel is the fact that you've got a bunch of siloed what-if scenarios, and the collaboration of data is not easily flowed through the organization. One of the things that's really difficult is sometimes the budgeting process is done at a very high level, and so getting down to being able to analyze prior year and trends and stuff, again, becomes very difficult to do. So these are just some of the challenges. Boy, we have a lot of people trying to get in. That's unfortunate. So again, workflow and making sure that when budget revisions are made, that there's a process that can be easily done to make sure that that is flowed throughout the organization, and again, making sure everyone is working on the same set of numbers. Excel offers a great attraction for budgeting. I think we don't need to sell the merits of Excel, but as we're all aware, it is just such an easy collaboration tool. It's a tool everybody is familiar with and knows how to use. We can certainly format and do a lot of what-if analysis. Excel is just great for that. And so as you'll see in the demonstration, we're just going to leverage a lot of just core Excel functionality. So again, one of the things that is really an advantage with the way BizInsight works is the ability I can generate budgets by any of the criteria needed for my planning and forecasting purposes. So we can look at it by any of the criteria that's set in your various ERP solutions. So we're going to take a look at just some simple examples. And again, the examples that we're going to show you are just to spark some ideas in terms of what the capabilities would be for your own planning purposes. So again, one of the things that we really want to do is we want to be able to build budgets easily, distribute budgets easily, and if we have a new entity or department, being able to add that to the budgeting process easily, minimizing the manual effort. So in many cases, we can eliminate the exporting of data, and as you'll see in my demonstration, we can, should you want to, eliminate or certainly minimize the importing and exporting of data. So we can certainly streamline that manual budgeting process for you. So some of the, again, things that people look for in a budgeting solution, and there's some very good budgeting and planning solutions out there in the market, and that's all they do, and they're very, they do really elaborate planning and reforecasting. That's not what we do, but they're also very complex. They're very, there's a large learning curve. They can be very pricey, and basically we think we get our clients, if not all the way there, a good part of it, and it is included in just the core product we deliver for financial reporting. And I think the process you're going to see is very easy to do. It is extremely flexible in terms of how you're going to set it up, and it's something that obviously is designed for business users. So what we're going to be able to do is build reports, our budget process once, and be able to really interact real-time with the database. And we can look at easily building different scenarios as well. So just kind of, let's take a look at the product here. So you all are familiar, this is our user interface, it's Excel. And again, today we're going to be focusing not on the core product of financial reporting, but we're going to be focusing strictly on the budgeting process. So a couple of points to make is I've got a couple of different scenarios here. We're going to be focusing on what I call kind of the budget build automated process. But I'm going to just point out, take you through actually generating new budgets, starting building how we can streamline the budget build process, how we're going to easily get those distributed out. And that, whether we start with the semi-automated or the totally automated, the budget build process works the same. So for those of you that want to store budgets within your ERP, we could an import, then that would be set up as import. And we'll talk a little bit about that. We also now have the ability to actually store our budget data in a data file. As business, as a company, has elected never to write back to the source ERP, that affords us a lot of benefits more than not. This is an option now available to allow you to really streamline your budgeting process and eliminating the importing altogether. But if you wanted to, so we're going to take the beginning of this, the budget build process, whether we're going to set it up for import into our ERP or as an automated file, writing back to our own data file. The beginning of this is exactly the same. So what we're going to do right now is take you through, again, a quick scenario. I'm going to build new budgets for the coming year, and I'm going to build those new budgets based on my prior year actuals. So again, we can base this on anything we want. We have some clients that base it on the prior year budgets, but I think the majority of our clients actually are on the prior year actuals. Okay, so let's see, I think we have a question here. Well, we have lots of, ERP stands for our, enterprise accounting systems is kind of a standard term. These are our various solutions. We have clients today joining us that have totally different accounting solutions. So these are the various systems. And again, we have the ability to pull from different systems. So I made it kind of generic today because this process is applicable to whether you're on whatever system you're on. So I sort of made that generic because this process is going to work exactly the same, independent of what back office system you're currently using. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our prior year actuals, and we're now going to, what you're going to see is I'm going to generate budgets for each of my locations. And again, I can generate budgets by any number of criteria, by company, by department, by cost center. Again, this is just an example here. And I'm going to distribute those out uniquely for each location we generate the budget for, but I'm going to do that using one spreadsheet. What I'm going to do right now is to be able to build the budgets, we create an assumption sheet. And the purpose of this assumption sheet, again, is to generate the budgets. Now, I've got a very simple assumption sheet. We're breaking our assumptions just simply by revenue expenses. In some examples, I've actually have the assumptions broken out by fixed and variable. You'll see in some of the reforecasting examples I'm going to show you, can actually get down to the line items. So this can be as granular and as detailed as you want. The purpose of the assumption slide here is to really just show you that you can have multiple assumptions and you can have different types of assumptions. So in this example, we want to be able to add a fixed rate and or a percentage rate. And it could be obviously plus or minus, whatever we want to do, on a line-by-line basis if we wanted to. Now, I also have the ability to turn on or off other assumptions based on maybe I want to run it by doing a certain allocation criteria. In this case, we're looking at allocating by headcount. We could do it by anything we wanted to. And if I turned it off, then we would simply not allocate. We would just have a flat assumptions across, in this case, by location. And again, if I was doing it by company, department, I could have different allocation and parameters for each of those different criteria as well. So we've got our assumptions built, and once we do that, we're going to now take that prior year actual, and we're going to apply those assumptions to generate our new budgets. Now, this process up until now would be exactly the same whether we were setting this up for import back into our source solution. In this case, we're doing the automated. So just a couple of points to clarify that. What we just did in this is we generated the new budget and out to a file. Now, in the budget, the actual budget versus actual, we actually just set each of those templates up, storing those in a folder to be imported in. And just as a point of reference here, all of the systems have the ability to pull, and we have the functions, just like the month-to-date actual, the budget functions, to pull actually from your various accounting solutions. But in this case, we're not setting it up for import. So once this is set up, we just generated our budgets. We're now going to come up here using Viz Broadcast, and hopefully everyone's familiar with Viz Broadcast. If you're not, it is our reporting and distribution solution. It's a very, very slick way of generating multiple versions of a report and setting up that distribution to be very easily distributed and pushing a report. So if anyone needs a little bit refresher on that, I'm happy to do that. But once you've set up your distribution here, again, we're just going to do one click. And what this is doing right now is it's generating each of the budget reports, again, for each location and sending and distributing them out. Now, I have them just going out to one of my folder on my desktop, but they could actually be emailed and as well as sent out to a folder. So we just generated our location reports. We're done with the budget build process for now. And we're going to come over here to our folder, and there's our budget reports. Now, again, this is we're going to open up the Dallas report. And what we're going to do is we're going to kind of switch gears here, and we're going to be the Dallas manager, the location manager. And you can see that we generated it right now for version 1 with today's date. And for his report, we sent him just his new budget reports for his location or her location. And I notice I sent 2 reports. We included their prior year actual report for their reference as well as the new proposed budget. Now I'm going to make some changes to this. This is, again, just some basic assumptions for my review and input. And I need to change, and we can change any number of these, but just to simulate this, I'm going to change this number because February, our fiscal period 2, is typically very soft. So I'm going to change that. And if we have, usually when this is kind of, we've got a one-on-one, I usually ask for someone to give me a number here. But I'm just going to pick a number, and if someone wants to see a different number, I'll show you that it's all dynamic here. I'm just going to just reforecast that consulting revenue line, and I'm going to just bring it down to 123,000. So we're done. I just now can close my file out, and we're now going to come over here to our budget versus actual. And again, the only difference is one report would pull from, we would set it up for import, and the budget versus actual would be pulling from your accounting systems. This is actually pulling the budget data from this file. So I'm going to pull in the budget versus actual. And again, remember we changed it, I think, for Dallas location for period 2. So while we're just sitting at period 2, I'm going to select Dallas, sorry, and you'll see there's my number. So what we just did is we, using one budget template, we generated all the location budgets, sent them out, and we were able to use our prior year actual, so we eliminated the exporting. And with this automated process of storing it in a file, we now eliminated all the importing of the budget data. So it can really streamline the process. And now you've got your standard actual versus budget, month-to-date, year-to-date, and we're building the year-to-date in that process as we go. So even though we're keying in for that 12 months, each month, we're actually generating month-to-date and year-to-date in our file for you automatically. So see, there might be a couple of questions here, so let me check those out. Okay. So someone wants to see how the the assumptions came in, and they want to see this broadcast. So can sales be locked so the budgets cannot be reforecasted? Absolutely. So you could certainly do that. So again, typically you are going to want them to reforecast potentially, but if you're just publishing a report, then you would you could lock it down as well. Or what you might want to do is lock down maybe the fixed expenses on a report and provide input. That might be a better demo, actually, now that I think about it. is allow them to just change the variable expenses, like travel and things like that. So that might be a better, but rent and some of the facility expenses might be fixed and locked down. So that's a kind of tweak, a good suggestion for me. So here, whether we're again using the month-to-date functions or the functions that retrieve this, you've got all, the ability to easily build reports, and this looking at an actual versus budget or forecast for the year. You can just kind of drag and drop, and of course this could be automatically set up to be dynamically formatted based on period. So you can just these types of reports in Excel can take a lot of time. Where like this, you can see it's very dynamic. And we've got a couple of other examples of that, but I'm going to go back and answer the question on the before we get too far down on the distribution. Sorry, I brought in the wrong report here. Let's go back to the build process. So all we're doing is we're setting this up, and we're creating the budget for each of the locations. So again, if you're familiar with the way Biz Broadcast works, is we have the ability to generate from one report template or one report tab here any number of versions. And these we're generating them all in Excel, and we're sending them out. And again, the way that works is we're passing location. Okay, so I'm basically passing location here, and you can see that's got the named reference, so that I'm able to generate the locations. Now, what's really nice with the way we store the files as well is I'm able to track versions. So we obviously, just like in the budgeting that you can do within your accounting solutions, you can have as many budget versions as you want. Same approach here. We would just, when I applied the budget before, we actually started with version 1, and we have the ability to track and pull up specific versions. So hopefully that answered the question for you on the Biz Broadcast. There's a lot of functionality in Biz Broadcast. So we've got a lot of questions here, and there's a lot of people. And if I happen to miss your question, we'll make sure we get to it, in an email. Okay. So someone says I'm new to BizNet, and I don't see the templates there. So there are standard templates, and should check with your sales representative account on the customer portal typically. So we just we just hired a person to start building nothing but templates. Can you use this for Dynamics SL project budgets? Absolutely. In fact, I have a really good demo on that. So yes, absolutely. That would be a very, very good use of this whole process. So yes, you can use it for absolutely anything. Also kind of look at, we're going to try to keep this half hour. We might run a little longer because we have a lot of questions, and that's great. So kind of looking at the ability, whether again we're pulling from a system or a file, you have the ability to do some nice what ifs. So again, one of the challenges we mentioned in the PowerPoint is because we're not having to spend so much time generating and updating spreadsheets, we can build reports once that will allow us to do some analysis. It could be 12 months against a forecast or budget for the year, and it's rolling. So based on my current month, okay, and I can go back into any product, I'm going to get that 6-month actual against forecast. Now, one of the things that we're looking at here is, again, the ability to have various parameters. And these are simple, and I'll show you, this is kind of, again, break it by revenue or expenses, and you can see reforecast. So for executives, it's going to be very easy to kind of set them up to reforecast kind of on the fly. They can do whatever what-if analysis they want without continually reforecasting. So you'll see here's my expense line. So we can kind of do whatever we want to do here. And it's just very, very nicely once you set that up. So this is kind of, again, breaking it out simply by revenue expenses. We have examples up a lot. Well, can I get down to the line item? Absolutely. So it's kind of, there's a lot going on here. I actually built this for a presentation that they have this particular kind of requirement. We're kind of looking at historically kind of the percentages of how this broke down based on the total. So this is the percentage of total expenses. This is what it was for our last 6 months. This is based on the forecast, and we're looking at our kind of our actual and this is again looking at a 6-month trend. This is looking at the forecast numbers, and then what they want to be able to do without as a comparison is being able to reforecast on a line-by-line basis. So it's Excel, and it's just really, really easy to do. So a little bit more going on here, but it does, you know, you can kind of see the possibilities. And again, these are just simple examples. You can have this set up anybody would like to do that. So, okay, so kind of tweaking the interest a little bit. The other thing that I think Biz Broadcast is really great for is I just got one alert here, could probably set up more. I've got an alert set up that if we're exceeding our budget, and in some cases we have exceeded, if you know, are getting close to the budget threshold, maybe you're 90% of the budget, you can basically include this in your distribution through the year, the budget reports, is you can have it be conditionally formatted. Now I've got this going as an email to my actual email address, so you'll see the email come in, but it's a conditional format. Right now what it's doing is it's saying if we check our budget field, you know, kind of R32, if we're exceeding, in other words, we have no more budget for the year. This is looking at all locations. I could do it for individual locations. I want to generate that alert. And right now we've exhausted our budgets for the year. Our actual expenses exceeds our budget. So I'm going to show you when we go to run this. And again, you'll see my little email flash come in. We're just going to do the budget run, and it's going to generate that alert for me because it is meeting the condition. Okay, you see the email notification. Oops, come in here in a minute. What I want to do is show you that if I change the operator so we don't meet the condition, then you'll see the next time I go to publish, we wouldn't generate the alert. So it's kind of a nice little feature of this broadcast. And again, the setup, especially in the budget threshold, as you're getting close, you know, if you're getting 80% of the plan and it's only February, I probably want to do a little reforecasting or generate some alerts here. So that's kind of a nice feature. So for forecast, can you add headcount in the month? Is it happening per known hiring? So I'm not sure I understand the question. So wherever that data is coming from, we can certainly do that. And one of the nice things is you could store that headcount data in our file as well. Some of the accounting solutions allow you to enter statistics. We have a lot of clients that enter headcount as a statistical fee number, so we can do it as well. But again, that's we kind of have to take that offline. I'm not sure that I answered the question appropriately. Okay, so lastly, I'm going to kind of wrap up with a couple of things here, but want to just make sure we put it up for general Q&A. But you can kind of see this is a very simple thing to set up. And again, I think it gets our clients, if not all the way there. It's certainly because it's functionality. If you have this insight today, you all have this capability today. So a couple of things to note. In the ability to generate those templates automatically and information happen automatically, they would need to be a viewer to do that. So, because we're sending them a real live report. So, okay. So, I'm going to just kind of wrap it up with some basic Q&A, and hopefully everyone got a fairly good feel for some of the things that you can do. And again, if you would like a more in-depth demonstration, please contact your sales representative, and we can talk to you about how we can make the budgeting process work for you individually. I'm going to kind of come back to our webinar here. So just to kind of reiterate some of the functionality that we offer. Okay, So again, the process of really being able to set up that modeling and those assumptions, and again, this can be so complex, it's just so flexible. And through the biz broadcast process, you add another department, you just add another department code to the biz broadcast parameter list, and it doesn't really impact the, the budgeting reports themselves. So that's really a nice feature. We talked about that in some of the early challenges. So again, we can leverage all of the great functionality of Excel, and as well as our pre-built formulas. So again, you can pull the budgets, store them in your accounting solution, or store them in our data file. Either way works great. One is just a little bit more automated. So consolidating information, being able to analyze that detail by any way you want to see that, I think, and the ability to do some statistical reporting, even some nice dashboarding on those statistical reports, I think is really, really just a cool feature. And the best part about this is that we include this budgeting functionality in our core financial solutions. So we've had clients spend a lot of money with licenses and deploying very complex budgeting apps that said, yeah, I wish we knew we could do this with BizNet. So that was the purpose of this today. So again, you may have more, there are needs for those kinds of products, but again, I think we can get you partway there.